Imagine a man so dangerously possessive, he creates a public scandal just because another woman dared to sit in your chair. Penny Pringle walked into Ethan Cross's office with a clipboard and a desperate need for cash, thinking she was the professional matchmaker finding a wife for a billionaire beast. She was wrong. She wasn't the matchmaker, she was the target. One growl changed the contract. One touch sparked a forbidden fire that could burn the entire city down. He doesn't want the blind date she arranged. He wants the woman who tried to sell him off. Are you ready for an obsession that defies all logic? Hit like if you love a possessive alpha. Subscribe to @Linus Romantasy Collection for more addictive romance, and tell me in the comments, where in the world are you listening from today? Chapter 1. The $10 million Problem. The eviction notice on my desk wasn't just pink. It was neon aggressive pink. It looked like it was screaming at me. 5 days, Penny, I whispered to the empty office, rubbing my temples. You have until Friday to come up with 50 grand, or Nana Ruby loses her kneecaps to a witch named Trixie. I looked at the file next to the notice. It was thick, black, and stamped with a silver logo that looked like a jagged mountain range. Cross Enterprises. This was it, the Hail Mary Pass. My agency, Perfect Match, usually handled low-level supernaturals, vampires who needed dates that didn't mind the whole no garlic rule, or bear shifters who wanted someone to hibernate with. But Ethan Cross? He was the whale, the alpha of the Apex pack, the kind of guy who appeared on the cover of Forbes looking like he was about to fire the photographer. Rumor was, he needed a wife to secure a merger with a European pack. He didn't want love, he wanted a business partner. And he was paying a finder's fee that would clear Nana's debt and buy me a lifetime supply of anxiety meds. I grabbed my lucky red clipboard, clicked my pen 3 times for courage, and marched out the door. 40 minutes later, I was standing in an elevator that cost more than my college tuition. The glass walls shot upward, revealing the rainy skyline of Viridia Bay, but I was too busy hyperventilating to enjoy the view. My reflection in the glass looked tragic. My blazer was a size too big, a thrift store find, and my hair was trying to escape the pencil I'd shoved through it. I looked like a librarian who had just survived a wind tunnel. Ding! The doors slid open. I stepped onto a plush gray carpet that swallowed my sensible flats. Miss Pringle? The assistant at the desk didn't look up. She was typing so fast her fingers were a blur. She smelled like peppermint and fear. Yes, here to see Mr. Cross. I have an appointment at 9. Go in, she said, finally glancing up with eyes wide and terrified. And good luck, he's in a mood. He's always in a mood, I muttered, clutching the clipboard to my chest like a shield. I walked toward the double mahogany doors at the end of the hall. I didn't knock. Successful people knocked. Desperate people barged in to show initiative. Or at least, that's what a self-help book told me once. I pushed the doors open. The office was freezing. That was the first thing that hit me. A wave of cold air that made me shiver. It smelled clean, like rain on hot asphalt and expensive, spicy cologne. Ethan Cross was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to me. He was massive, not in a bodybuilder way, but in a I chop wood for fun way. His shoulders were broad enough to block out the view of the city bridge. He was wearing a suit that was tailored so sharply it probably cut anyone who touched it. You're late, he said. His voice was deep, rough. It sounded like gravel tumbling inside a dryer. I'm actually 30 seconds early, I corrected, checking my watch. Your elevator is slow. He turned around. My breath hitched. Okay, the photos didn't do him justice. He had a face that looked lived in. There was a small scar cutting through his left eyebrow, and his hair was dark, messy in a calculated way. But it was his eyes that froze me. They were a startling, icy blue, and right now, they were locked on me like I was an intruder. He didn't blink. He didn't smile. He just stared, his gaze tracking from my messy hair down to my scuffed shoes, then back up to my face. His nostrils flared slightly. You, he said. It wasn't a question. It sounded like an accusation. Me? I managed to squeak out. I cleared my throat and put on my professional matchmaker voice. Penny Pringle, we spoke on the phone. I'm here to find you a queen, Mr. Cross. Ethan walked toward me. The room felt suddenly smaller. Every step he took felt like a hammer hitting the floor. He stopped way too close. I had to crane my neck just to look him in the eye. A queen, he repeated, his voice dropping an octave. He was looking at my neck.
Why was he looking at my neck?
Yes, a wife. Contractual, devoid of emotion, purely for the merger. I have a list of candidates. I started to lift my clipboard. He reached out and grabbed the clipboard. His fingers brushed against mine. Zap. It wasn't a little static shock. It felt like I'd just stuck a wet finger into a live socket. A jolt of electricity shot up my arm, rattling my teeth. I gasped and jerked back, dropping the clipboard. It clattered to the floor. Ouch! I shook my hand. Do you have faulty wiring in here? That hurt. Ethan didn't move. He wasn't looking at the clipboard on the floor. He was staring at his own hand, the one that had touched me, looking completely bewildered. His chest was heaving, like he'd just run a sprint. You felt that? He demanded. Felt it? It nearly stopped my heart, I snapped, bending down to pick up my papers. You need to get a humidifier. The air is too dry. When I stood up, he was closer. He was so close I could feel the heat radiating off him. It was a stark contrast to the freezing room. Penny, he said. The way he said my name made my stomach do a weird flip. It sounded possessive, heavy. Look, Mr. Cross, I said, stepping back and bumping into a leather chair. I know you have a reputation for being difficult, but I really need this job. I have a 98% success rate. I can find you a wolf, a nice one that doesn't shed on the furniture. He narrowed his eyes. The icy blue seemed to darken, swirling like a storm cloud. He took a deep breath, inhaling the air around me like he was trying to memorize it. Fine, he said abruptly. I blinked. Fine? You're hiring me? I'm hiring you, he said, his voice tight, like he was in pain. But we do this my way. You don't just find the candidates, you vet them, personally. Every dinner, every date. You are by my side until I make a choice. That wasn't in the original quote, I argued. That's extra hours. I'll pay double, he said. My jaw dropped. Double? That would pay off Nana, the witches, and get me a car that had working air conditioning. Deal, I said quickly before he could change his mind. I stuck my hand out to shake on it. Ethan looked at my hand, then he looked at my face. He put his hands behind his back, refusing to touch me again. Get out, he said, turning back to the window. Be back here at 7. We have work to do. Okay, good talk, great meeting. I grabbed my clipboard and scrambled for the door. As I rushed out, my heart hammering against my ribs, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just walked into a trap. And as the heavy doors swung shut behind me, I could have sworn I heard him whisper one word to the empty room. Finally. Chapter 2. The Fine Print. I returned to Cross Enterprises at exactly 6:58 p.m. The building was different at night. The lobby was empty, the lights dimmed to a moody, cinematic blue. It felt less like a corporate headquarters and more like the lair of a villain who had really good taste in architecture. The security guard, a guy named Stan who looked like he could bench press a Honda Civic, nodded at me. Mr. Cross is expecting you, top floor. He said not to stop at the desk. Thanks, Stan. I clutched my red clipboard tighter. The elevator ride felt longer this time. My stomach was doing gymnastics. I told myself it was just the caffeine wearing off, but deep down, I knew it was him. Ethan Cross, the man who had looked at me like I was a particularly interesting puzzle he wanted to take apart. When the doors opened, the office was dark. The only light came from the city skyline glowing through the massive windows and a single lamp on Ethan's desk. He was sitting there, reading a document. He had taken off his suit jacket. His white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. I caught a glimpse of ink, black tattoos winding up his forearms. You're here, he said, not looking up. 7 o'clock, as requested. I walked over, my heels clicking loudly on the hardwood floor. I brought the contract, standard matchmaking terms, non-disclosure agreement. Clause 4B states that if you eat the date, I don't refund the deposit. Ethan finally looked up. The blue of his eyes was even more striking in the dim light. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking. I don't eat people, Penny. You're a wolf, I pointed out, pulling a pen from my messy bun. I've seen the documentaries, pack dynamics, territory disputes. Sometimes people get nibbled. A corner of his mouth twitched. It wasn't a smile, but it was close. Nibbled. Is that the technical term? It is in my industry. I slid the contract across the massive mahogany desk. Sign here, here, and initial the part where you agree not to growl at the waitstaff. Ethan didn't even glance at the paper. He kept his eyes locked on my face, tracking the nervous movement of my hand as I clicked my pen. Click, click, click. He reached out. I flinched, remember the static shock from this morning. He paused, his hand hovering inches from the paper. He noticed my flinch. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping in his cheek. I won't hurt you, he said. His voice was low, rough sandpaper against my nerves. I know, I lied. It's just the static. Dry air, remember? Right, the air. He picked up a heavy fountain pen. He didn't read a single word. He just signed his name in aggressive, sharp strokes. Ethan Cross. You didn't read it, I said, scandalized. I could have put anything in there. I could have claimed your firstborn. I don't have a firstborn, he said, capping the pen. And I don't care about the terms. I care about the result. He stood up. He was so tall. Why did he have to be so tall? It made me feel like a child standing next to a redwood tree. The result, I repeated, trying to sound professional. Right, I have a candidate. Her name is Lydia. She's a beta from the river pack. Gorgeous, dentist, great teeth. I don't care about her teeth. You should. Dental hygiene is important. I grabbed the contract, tucking it safely onto my clipboard. We have a reservation at the Gilded Cage tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Do not be late. And wear a tie that isn't black. You look like you're going to a funeral. Ethan walked around the desk. He moved silently for a big man. Predator stealth. He stopped right in front of me, invading my personal space again. The smell of him, cedar, rain, and heat, washed over me. I'll wear whatever you pick out, he said softly. My brain short-circuited. Excuse me? You're the expert, he said, his gaze dropping to my lips for a split second before snapping back to my eyes. You want me to look presentable? Buy me a tie. Bring it tomorrow. Okay, fine. I'll bill you for it. Do that. He took a step closer, forcing me to tilt my head back. And Penny? Yes? My voice was barely a whisper. Don't wear that perfume tomorrow. I blinked, self-conscious. Does it smell bad? He leaned down, his face inches from my neck. He inhaled deeply, his chest expanding. The sound of his breath was heavy, shaky. No, he growled, the sound vibrating in my bones. It smells delicious. That's the problem. He turned and walked away before I could respond, leaving me standing in the dark office, trembling, wondering why being told I smelled good sounded remarkably like a threat. Chapter 3. The Setup. The Gilded Cage was the kind of restaurant where the water menu had prices. It was neutral territory, owned by the Vampire Council, which meant the lighting was dangerously low and the waiters moved like ghosts. I arrived at 7:30 p.m. to micromanage everything. No, I told the maitre d', a vampire named Julian who looked bored by his own immortality. Table 4 is too close to the kitchen. Wolves have sensitive hearing. If he hears the chef yelling, he'll get agitated. I need table 9, the corner booth. Julian sighed, a sound like crinkling parchment. Table 9 is reserved for the coven leaders. I don't care if it's reserved for the Pope, I said, tapping my clipboard. I have Ethan Cross coming in 30 minutes. Do you want an agitated Alpha King in your establishment, or do you want to move the witches? Julian's eyes widened slightly. Mr. Cross is coming? Yes, and he's on a date. So I need the lighting at 60%, no garlic in the appetizers, and for the love of God, do not offer him the steak tartare. It's too cliché. Julian moved table 9. By 7:45 p.m., I was sweating through my silk blouse. I had bought a new outfit for this, a simple black dress that I hoped looked professional, not like I was trying too hard. I sat in the corner booth, testing the sightlines. Okay, I muttered to myself, checking my list. Candle placement is good. Exit routes are clear in case Lydia cries. I have tissues. I have breath mints. I have a taser. Talking to yourself is the first sign of madness. I jumped, dropping my pen. Ethan was standing there. He was early, again, and he had listened. He wasn't wearing a black tie. He was wearing the one I had sent over by courier this morning, a deep, rich crimson silk. It looked devastating against his crisp white shirt and charcoal suit. "You're early," I accused, scrambling to pick up my pen. "I like to survey the terrain," he said, sliding into the booth opposite me. The leather groaned under his weight. He looked agitated. His leg was bouncing under the table. His eyes were scanning the room, assessing every threat, before landing on me. They softened instantly. "You're wearing the dress," he noted. I looked down. "It's just a dress, business casual." "It's not casual," he murmured. He reached across the table. I froze. Was he going to touch me again? He picked up the small centerpiece, a vase with a single white ruby, and moved it to the side. It was blocking my view. "Your view of what?" "You." My heart did that stupid flip again. "Ethan, focus! Lydia will be here in 10 minutes. She's perfect for you. She likes hiking, she eats raw meat, and she has a master's degree in economics." "Sounds boring," he said flatly. "Boring is good. Boring is stable. You need stable. You run a multi-billion-dollar empire and a pack of wolves. You don't need excitement. You need a wife who smiles for photos and doesn't ask why you come home covered in mud." Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. The sleeves of his suit stretched tight over his biceps. "And what do you think I need, Penny?" The question felt heavy, loaded. "I think you need to relax," I said, my voice shaky. "You're tense. Your shoulders are up to your ears." "I'm tense because I'm sitting across from the only thing in this room I want, and I'm not allowed to touch it." I stared at him. Was he talking about the bread basket? Before I could ask, the front door opened. The air shifted. A woman walked in. Lydia. She was stunning. Tall, blonde, moving with a predator's grace. She spotted Ethan immediately. Her eyes lit up. She strutted toward the table like it was a runway. "Okay," I whispered, panic setting in. "That's her. Be nice. Smile. Don't mention the nibbling thing." I started to slide out of the booth to give her my seat. Ethan's hand shot out. He didn't touch me, but he slammed his palm down on the leather seat right next to my hip, boxing me in. "Stay," he commanded. Chapter 4. The Chair. Lydia arrived at the table. She smelled like expensive perfume and confidence. She looked at Ethan, flashed a blindingly white smile, and then looked at me. Her expression curdled. "Oh," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "The help is still here." I winced. "Hi, Lydia. I'm Penny. We spoke on the—" "I know who you are," she dismissed me, turning her back on me to beam at Ethan. "Alpha Cross. It is an honor. You look even more powerful in person." She moved to sit down. Specifically, she moved to sit in the empty spot next to Ethan. Ethan didn't look at her. He was looking at me. His eyes were burning. "Actually," Lydia laughed lightly, realizing Ethan wasn't moving over to make room. "Maybe I should sit across from you. Better for conversation." She looked at me, waiting for me to vacate the booth. I grabbed my clipboard. "Right, yes. I'll just go over to the bar and monitor from a distance." I tried to stand up. Ethan's leg moved under the table, hooking around my ankle. It was a subtle, possessive move. He pinned me in place. Lydia, impatient, placed her hand on the back of the chair I was currently occupying. "Excuse me, sweetie, you're in the way." The temperature in the booth dropped 20 degrees. Ethan slowly turned his head to look at Lydia. The expression on his face was terrifying. It was absolute cold fury. His lip curled up, revealing the flash of a white canine that looked too sharp to be human. A low sound started in his chest, a growl. It vibrated through the table, rattling the silverware. Lydia froze. Her smile faltered. "Alpha?" Ethan spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the restaurant like a crack of thunder. "Get out," he snarled. Lydia blinked, confused. "What?" "You heard me," Ethan said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. He looked at Lydia's hand, which was still touching the back of the leather seat. "Get your hand off it!" "Off what?" Lydia asked, trembling. Ethan's eyes flashed a glowing electric blue. "You're sitting in her chair." Silence slammed into the restaurant. The vampires at the next table stopped drinking. Julian froze by the wine rack. I looked around, confused. "Whose chair?" I whispered. Ethan ignored me. He glared at Lydia. "This table is taken. This seat is taken. Leave." Lydia looked from Ethan to me, and then back to Ethan. She turned pale. You're joking. Her? The human?" "She has a name," Ethan said, standing up. He rubied to his full height, towering over the table. "And if you disrespect her again, I will forget that we are in neutral territory." Lydia didn't need to be told twice. She turned and practically ran out of the restaurant, her heels clacking frantically on the floor. I sat there, stunned. My mouth was hanging open. "Ethan!" I hissed, grabbing his arm to pull him back down. "That was Lydia, the dentist. She was perfect." He sat back down, looking completely unbothered. He picked up the menu. "She was annoying, and she smelled like antiseptic." "You kicked her out because she wanted to sit down?" "No," Ethan said, looking at me over the top of the menu. His eyes were calm now, satisfied. "I kicked her out because she tried to take your seat." "I was leaving. It was her date." "It wasn't a date, Penny," he said softly. "Then what was it?" He reached across the table, picked up my wine glass, and took a sip from the exact spot my lips had touched. "It was an interview, and she failed." Chapter 5. The Static. "An interview?" I repeated, watching him drink my wine. "You can't interview a wife like she's a personal assistant." "Ethan." "Why not? It's a job, isn't it? That's what you said, a contract." He signaled the waiter. "We'll have the roasted duck, and the chocolate soufflé for the lady." "I didn't order the soufflé." "You were looking at it on the menu for 5 minutes while you were pretending to check the lighting." I flushed. Okay, he was observant. Annoyingly so. "We need to discuss this," I said, trying to regain control. "You just blew a $50,000 commission. Do you know how hard it is to find a woman willing to marry an alpha who has a reputation for..." "For what?" "For being a mauled by bears statistic waiting to happen." Ethan chuckled. It was a dark, rusty sound. "Is that what they say about me?" "They say you're ruthless, cold, that you don't have a heart." He looked at me then, really looked at me. The humor vanished from his face, replaced by that intense, brooding hunger. "I have a heart, Penny. It's just been dormant, until recently." The waiter arrived with the wine bottle. He went to pour Ethan a glass, but Ethan covered the rim with his hand. "No, pour hers." The waiter reached across. His sleeve brushed my shoulder. A low, warning rumble started in Ethan's chest. The waiter froze, eyes wide, and quickly poured the wine without touching me again. He scurried away. "Stop growling at the service staff," I whispered furiously. "It's rude." He was too close. He was pouring wine. He was breathing on you. Ethan picked up his fork, stabbing a roasted potato with unnecessary violence. "So, who's next on the list?" I fumbled for my clipboard. Well, there's a bear shifter named Brenda. She owns a honey farm." "No. You haven't even seen her picture." I don't like bears. They're loud. Okay, how about Countess Valeriana? She's a vampire. Very old money. Very pale. Ethan paused. He seemed to consider it. A leech? They prefer hematologically challenged Americans. Fine, he said, cutting his duck. Set it up. Tomorrow night. Really? I was surprised. You'll actually give her a chance? I'll give you a chance to see why she's wrong for me. We ate in silence for a few minutes. It wasn't awkward silence, though. It was heavy, charged. Every time I moved, his eyes tracked me. Every time I licked my lips, his gaze darkened. When the bill came, I reached for it. Company expense. Don't be ridiculous. He snatched the leather folder before I could touch it. Our fingers brushed. Crack. The static was louder this time. A visible blue spark arched between our knuckles. It stung, sharp and hot. Ow! I yanked my hand back, rubbing my skin. Seriously, Ethan, you are like a walking battery. What kind of fabric softener do you use? Ethan didn't pull away. He stared at his hand, then at mine. He looked fascinated and pained. It's not the fabric softener, Penny, he whispered. Then what is it? Static cling? Dry skin? He leaned in across the table. His face was grave. It's chemistry. Before I could argue that chemistry didn't cause actual sparks, my phone buzzed violently on the table. Nana Ruby flashed on the screen. I groaned. I have to take this. She's probably at the track. I answered. Nana, is everything okay? Penny! Nana's voice was tinny and loud. Listen, sweetheart, don't be mad, but I kind of doubled down. My blood ran cold. Doubled down on what? On the ponies. I had a tip, but the horse, well, he decided to take a nap in the middle of the race. Point is, Trixie isn't happy. I closed my eyes. How much, Nana? Another 10 grand, and she says the interest rate is going up at midnight. I felt the blood drain from my face. 60,000. I needed $60,000 in 2 days. I hung up the phone, my hand trembling. Ethan was watching me. He hadn't moved. He had heard every word. Wolf hearing. How much? He asked. His voice wasn't soft anymore. It was all business. CEO, Alpha. It's nothing, I said, shoving my phone into my bag. Just family stuff. Penny. He said my name like a command. How much is the debt? It's fine. I'll handle it. I stood up, my legs shaking. I'll set up the date with the Countess. Same time tomorrow. Good night, Mr. Cross. I turned to flee. I bought your apartment building this morning, he said to my back. I froze. I turned around slowly. What? He stood up, buttoning his jacket. He looked like a king issuing a decree. I bought the building, and I'm raising the security. No one gets in or out without my permission, including witches named Trixie. Here are chapters 6 through 10 of The Matchmaker's Mistake, adhering strictly to the Checkpoint Bible, tone guidelines, and word count constraints. Chapter 6. The New Management. The sidewalk outside the gilded cage was slick with rain, reflecting the neon signs of the city like spilled oil. I stood there, clutching my purse to my chest, staring up at Ethan Cross. You bought my building, I repeated, the words feeling heavy and absurd on my tongue. My building, the one with the broken intercom and the smell of boiled cabbage in the hallway. Ethan adjusted his cuffs. The crimson tie I'd sent him, the one that made his eyes look like glacial ice, was slightly crooked now. It's a strategic acquisition. It's a tenement in the Garlic District, I shouted, causing a passing vampire to hiss and cover his nose. Why would you buy it? Security concerns, he said simply. He signaled for his car. A sleek black sedan that looked more like a tank than a vehicle rolled up to the curb silently. Go home, Penny. Get some sleep. Tomorrow is a busy day. We aren't done talking about this. We are for tonight. He opened the back door, not for himself, but for me. Get in. My driver will take you. I can take the subway. He just looked at me. He didn't growl, he didn't argue. He just held the door and leveled that heavy, absolute stare at me until my knees felt like jelly. Fine, I grumbled, sliding into the leather interior. It smelled like him, cedar and rain. It was infuriating. As the car pulled away, I watched him through the rear window. He was standing on the curb, hands in his pockets, watching me leave. He looked like a statue carved from shadows. The ride to my apartment usually took 40 minutes on the train. In Ethan's car, it took 15. The driver, a guy with a neck as thick as a tree trunk, didn't say a word. He just drove with terrifying precision. When we pulled up to my building, I gasped. "What is that?" I pointed at the front door. Usually, the entrance to the Pringle Arms, Nana named it, not me, was guarded by an overflowing dumpster and a feral cat named Mittens. Now, there were two men standing by the door. They were massive. They wore black suits that strained at the seams, and they were scanning the street with professional paranoia. "New security," the driver grunted, "courtesy of Mr. Cross." I scrambled out of the car. "Excuse me, hi, I live here." One of the guards stepped forward. He sniffed the air near my head. "Miss Pringle, cleared for entry, top floor." "Cleared for... I have a key." I waved my keychain at him. "And where is Mittens?" "The feline has been relocated to a heated shelter in the courtyard," the guard said. "Mr. Cross doesn't like uncontrolled variables." I stormed inside. The lobby, which usually flickered with a dying fluorescent bulb, was bright. Someone had replaced the lights. The smell of cabbage was gone, replaced by an industrial cleaner that smelled like lemons and chemical warfare. I ran up the 3 flights of stairs because the elevator had been out of order since 1998. But when I hit the button out of habit, the doors slid open smoothly with a cheerful ding. "No way," I whispered. I rode the elevator up, feeling like I had stepped into an alternate dimension. When I got to my apartment door, 4B, there was a new lock, a keypad. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Code is 1024. Don't share it. E." I punched in the code. The lock clicked open. Inside, my apartment was exactly as I'd left it. Cluttered, cozy, piles of fashion magazines on the coffee table, but there was a sleek black box sitting on my kitchen counter. I approached it cautiously. It looked like a bomb, or a very expensive speaker. I poked it. "System activated," a robotic voice announced. "Perimeter secure. Welcome home, Penny." I sank onto my lumpy couch, putting my head in my hands. He had fortified my apartment in less than 4 hours. He had fixed the elevator. He had relocated a feral cat. My phone buzzed again. Another text. "Check the freezer. E." I frowned. I walked to the kitchen and yanked open the freezer door. Usually it contained a bag of frozen peas, for ice packs, and a half-eaten tub of mint chip ice cream. Now it was packed. Stacks of cash were not inside, unfortunately, but there were rows of high-end frozen meals, expensive steaks, and right in the front, 3 pints of Godiva chocolate liqueur ice cream. And a note. "Eat something. You look too thin. E." I slammed the freezer door shut. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This wasn't just a boss looking out for an employee. This wasn't just a client securing his investment. This was a takeover. And the terrifying part? As I grabbed a spoon and dug into the expensive ice cream, realized I felt safer than I had in years. And that terrified me more than Trixie the Witch ever could. I was just scraping the bottom of the carton when a heavy knock rattled my front door. Not a polite knock, a police knock. I checked the peephole. It wasn't the police, it was Trixie, and she was holding a lighter. Chapter 7. The Cage. I didn't open the door. I wasn't stupid. "I know you're in there, Pringle." Trixie's voice was like scratching a chalkboard. "I saw the wolf guards downstairs. Think you can hide behind muscle? Interest is ticking." "I have the money coming," I yelled through the wood, clutching my spoon like a weapon. 2 days, Trixie. The contract pays out in 2 days." 48 hours, she hissed, "or I burn the debt out of your grandma." I heard her heels click away down the hall. I slumped against the door, my adrenaline crashing. I needed to speed this up. I needed Ethan to pick a wife now. The next morning, I marched into Cross Enterprises with war paint on. Okay, it was just extra concealer to hide the dark circles, but I felt fierce. I need to see him, I told the assistant, bypassing the desk. He's in a meeting with the board, she squeaked. I don't care. I clutched my red clipboard like a weapon and hit the elevator button. The doors opened and I stepped in. Just as they were closing, a large hand slammed between them. The safety sensors tripped and the doors bounced back open. Ethan stood there. He looked tired. His tie was gone, his top button undone. He stepped into the elevator, filling the small space instantly. The air pressure seemed to drop. You have a lot of nerve coming up here without an appointment, he said, pressing the button for the top floor. You have a lot of nerve buying my building, I snapped, turning to face him. The elevator started to rise. And Trixie was at my door last night. Your guards let her up. Ethan went still. What? She came to the door. She threatened me. Ethan slammed his hand against the emergency stop button. The elevator lurched to a halt between the 40th and 41st floors. Why did the guards let her up? His voice was dangerously quiet. I don't know. Maybe because she's a witch and she glamored them, or maybe because your security theater is just that, theater. I will fire them, he muttered, pacing the 3 feet of available space. I will tear them apart. Stop it, I said, putting my hands on my hips. I don't need you to tear anyone apart. I need you to get married. We have a date tonight. Countess Valeriana. She's rich, she's powerful, and she probably has a spell to keep witches away. Ethan stopped pacing. He turned to me, trapping me against the mirrored wall. He was close, too close. I could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes. You want me to marry a vampire to pay off your debts? It's a business transaction, Ethan. That's what you wanted. Is it? He leaned down. His hand came up to rest on the wall beside my head. Because last night, when I was lying in bed, all I could think about was you sitting in that booth, in my chair. My breath hitched. It's just a chair. It's my territory, he corrected, his voice dropping to a rumble that vibrated through the floor of the elevator. And you are the only one I allow in it. Why? I whispered. The word slipped out before I could stop it. He looked at my mouth. Then he looked at my pulse point, which was fluttering like a trapped bird. Because you don't smell like fear, he lied. I knew he was lying because I smelled terrifyingly like fear right now. You smell like... He leaned closer. His nose brushed the shell of my ear. Zap! His ear brushed my cheek. A spark of static, hot and sharp, snapped between us. It was loud in the quiet elevator. I gasped. Ethan groaned, a low, pained sound in his throat. Ethan, I warned, my voice trembling. The static. I know, he rasped. I like it. He pulled back just an inch. His eyes were blown wide, the pupils swallowing the blue. Cancel the date with the Countess. I can't, I said, my voice sounding weak even to my own ears. We have a contract, and I need the money. He stared at me for a long, agonizing second. Then he slammed his fist against the restart button. The elevator jerked back into motion. Fine, he said, his voice turning cold and distant again. We go on the date, but if she tries to bite me, I'm taking her head off. The doors dinged open on the top floor. Ethan stormed out without waiting for me. I looked in the mirror. My face was flushed, my lips were swollen, and there was a small red mark on my cheek where the static had burned me. Chapter 8. The Blood Money. The venue for date number 2 was the Crimson Lounge. It was a subterranean jazz club favored by the undead. It was dark, smelled like rusty pennies, blood, and expensive velvet, and the music was slow and seductive. I sat in the surveillance booth, essentially a dark corner behind a potted fern, watching table 4. Countess Valeriana was intense. She was pale, beautiful in a sharp, glass-cutting way, and she was currently sipping a glass of warm O-negative like it was a Pinot Noir. Ethan sat opposite her. He looked miserable. He was checking his watch every 30 seconds. My phone buzzed. She isn't blinking. Why isn't she blinking? E, I texted back. She's dead, Ethan. Blinking is optional. Ask her about her art collection. I watched as Ethan sighed, looked at the Countess, and said something. She laughed. It was a tinkling sound, like ice hitting crystal. She reached out and placed her hand on his arm. Ethan didn't pull away, but I saw his shoulders stiffen. He looked at her hand like it was a poisonous spider. Alpha Cross, I heard Valeriana purr. Vampire hearing boosters were part of my kit. You are so tense. You need to relax. My lineage could offer your pack significant advantages. We have money. We have influence. I have money, Ethan said flatly. I need a queen who can handle the pack. Can you run in the woods? Can you handle the change? I don't run, Valeriana sniffed. I glide. And as for your dog form, I assume you would keep that outside the house. I don't do shedding. I winced. Wrong answer. Ethan's phone lit up under the table. She called it a dog form. Can I kill her now? E. No killing, I typed frantically. Just endure it for another 20 minutes. Valeriana leaned closer, her fangs peeking out. You know, the real issue isn't the pack. It's that little handler of yours, the human. Ethan went very still. Penny? Yes, the matchmaker. She's quaint, but honestly, Alpha, it's embarrassing seeing you take orders from a snack. The air in the club seemed to vanish. Ethan slowly removed Valeriana's hand from his arm. He stood up. Penny, he said, his voice carrying over the jazz band, is not a snack. Oh, please, Valeriana rolled her eyes. She's frail. She smells like anxiety and cheap shampoo. Once we are married, I'll have to dismiss her. Or perhaps eat her. That was it. Ethan didn't flip the table. That would have been too chaotic. Instead, he placed his hands on the heavy oak table and simply crushed the edge. Wood splintered with a loud crack. The date is over, Ethan said. His voice wasn't a growl, it was an execution order. If you ever say her name again, I will burn this club to the ground with you inside it. He turned and walked toward my hiding spot behind the fern. He ripped the plant aside. We're leaving, he commanded, grabbing my hand. Ethan, the deposit, I cried as he dragged me toward the exit. Forget the deposit. He pulled me out into the cool night air. He was breathing hard, his chest heaving. He spun around and pinned me against the brick wall of the alleyway. Did you hear what she said? He demanded. I heard, I squeaked. She called me a snack. It happens. It does not happen, he snarled. He leaned his forehead against mine. You are not food. You are... He stopped. He couldn't say it. Mate. I'm what? I whispered. He pulled back, frustration etched into every line of his face. He looked at me with a mixture of hunger and despair. You're a liability, he said roughly, and I'm done risking you. No more dates. I'm handling this myself. Chapter 9. The Offering. The next morning, I woke up to a scream. It wasn't my scream. It was Mrs. Higgins from 4A. I scrambled out of bed, grabbing my taser from my purse on the nightstand, and ran into the hallway. Mrs. Higgins was standing in front of my door, clutching her chest. Penny! Good Lord, child, what have you done? I looked at my welcome mat. There, sitting neatly on the home sweet home rug, was a cooler, a massive, industrial-sized white cooler. It was strapped shut with duct tape, and sticking out of the top was a note. For you, E. It's a gift, I told Mrs. Higgins, my voice shaking, from a client. It smells like a butcher shop, she yelled, retreating into her apartment. I dragged the heavy cooler inside. It weighed a ton. I cut the tape and opened the lid. I stared. It was meat. High-quality, marble-rich, raw elk steaks. About 50 pounds of it. Enough to feed a family of 4 for a year. Or a pack of wolves for a night. I stared at the raw meat. Then I started to laugh. It was a hysterical, bubbling sound. He was courting me. In his broken, wolf-brained way, he was trying to provide. He had ruined the date, so now he was bringing me food to show he could take care of me. My phone rang. It was him. "Did you get it?" he asked. He sounded anxious, actually anxious. "Ethan," I said, leaning against the counter, "you sent me 50 pounds of raw elk." Silence. "Is that not enough?" It's a lot of protein," I said, trying not to giggle. "But usually humans prefer chocolate, or flowers, or cash." "Cash," he repeated. "I can do cash." No cash. That makes it weird." I sighed, looking at the slabs of meat. "Thank you, Ethan. It's very primal." "I hunted it myself," he admitted quietly. "Last night, after the club, I needed to run." My heart squeezed. He had run off his aggression and thought of me. "It's a lovely gesture," I said softly. "But next time, maybe just a coffee." Coffee, right. "And Ethan, we need to talk about the no more dates thing. The contract—" "I have a solution," he interrupted. "The Solstice Gala is on Friday. It's the deadline for the merger. If I don't have a queen by then, the deal falls through." "Exactly. So we need to find someone." "I have someone," he said. "Be at the office at noon. We have a fitting." "A fitting? For who?" "For you," he said. "You're coming to the gala, and you're not coming as the matchmaker." Chapter 10. The Red Dress. I arrived at Cross Enterprises at noon, ready to argue. "I am not going as your date," I rehearsed in the elevator. "It's unprofessional. It's a conflict of interest, and I don't have anything to wear." When the doors opened, I walked straight into a whirlwind. Ethan's office had been transformed. There were racks of clothes everywhere: silks, velvets, satins. A small woman with a tape measure around her neck was circling Ethan like a shark. "Ah, the mannequin arrives," the woman cried, spotting me. "I am not a mannequin," I protested. "I am a consultant." Ethan was standing by the window. He turned. He looked calm today, focused. "Penny, this is Madame Leclerc. She has 3 hours to make you look like royalty." "Ethan, I can't go to the gala as your date. The press will be there. The pack elders will be there." "Exactly," he said, walking over to me. He stopped just outside of touching range. He learned fast. "I need a buffer. Someone who knows the candidates. Someone who can whisper in my ear and tell me which one isn't trying to poison me." "So I'm going as security?" "You're going as my guest, but yes, you are working." "Oh." I felt a pang of disappointment. Of course, it was work. "Well, in that case, I should wear black, blend in." "No," Ethan said. He reached into a rack of clothes and pulled out a hanger. The dress was red, not polite cherry red. It was blood red, deep and rich. It was silk, backless, and looked like it was made of liquid sin. "Wear this," he commanded. "That?" I choked. "Ethan, that's a lot of dress. It has a slit up to my hip bone." "It's the color of the obsidian pack crest," he lied smoothly. "It shows allegiance." "It shows my leg." "Wear it." His voice dropped to that gravelly register that made my toes curl. "Humor me." Madame Leclerc shooed me behind a screen. I wrestled myself into the dress. It fit like a second skin. It held everything in and pushed everything up. I looked dangerous. I stepped out. Ethan stopped breathing. He was holding a glass of water. His hand tightened around it until the glass shattered. Crunch. Water and shards of glass spilled onto the carpet. He didn't even look at it. He was staring at me with a look of absolute, terrifying hunger. "Too much?" I asked nervously, tugging at the hem. He walked over to me, ignoring the broken glass. He stopped inches away. The heat coming off him was intense. "Turn around," he whispered. I turned. The dress plunged low in the back. I felt his fingers hover over my bare skin. He traced the line of my spine without actually touching me. The air between us crackled with that familiar static. The hair on my arms stood up. "Perfect," he rasped. "You'll wear this, and you will stay by my side. If any wolf tries to cut in on the dance floor—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. "You'll growl at them?" I teased weakly. I'll rip their throat out, he promised. Just then, the elevator doors pinged open. A tall, strikingly beautiful woman with silver hair walked in. She looked like a queen. Ethan, she said coolly, I heard you were shopping. I thought I'd come see what the fuss is about. It was Celeste, the rival alpha, the one who wanted his
Chapter
territory.
11.
And
The
she was
Wolf
looking at me
and
like
the
I was a
Wasp.
bug she wanted to squash.
The
The silence in the office was sharp enough to cut skin. Celeste, the alpha of the Silver Moon Pack, stood in the doorway, looking like she had just stepped out of a Vogue shoot for supervillains. She was tall, impossibly elegant, and wearing a white pantsuit that probably cost more than my entire education. Her silver hair fell in a perfect, shimmering curtain around a face that was beautiful in the same way a blizzard is beautiful, cold, lethal, and indifferent to survival. She looked at Ethan. Then, slowly, her gaze slid to me. I was still standing on the podium, squeezed into the backless red dress, my hair a mess, looking like a deer caught in the headlights of a very expensive car. I didn't know you were auditioning strippers, Ethan, Celeste said. Her voice was smooth, like velvet wrapped around a razor blade. I thought you were looking for a queen. I felt my face heat up, a flush that had nothing to do with the dress and everything to do with the sudden urge to tase her. Ethan didn't move. He didn't look at Celeste. He was staring at his right hand, where blood was currently dripping from his clenched fist onto the pristine carpet. He had crushed the water glass into dust, and shards were embedded in his palm. Get out, Celeste, Ethan said. His voice was low, devoid of emotion. It wasn't a growl, it was a flat fact. Don't be rude, Celeste said, stepping into the room. She ignored his command. I came to offer a truce. The merger is failing, Ethan, you know it. The Europeans won't sign unless you present a stable leadership, a mate. She gestured to herself. Why keep looking when the obvious choice is right here? We merge the packs. We take the city. I would rather burn the city down than share it with you, Ethan said. He finally looked up. His eyes were still blown wide, the pupils swallowing the blue, leaving only a rim of electric indigo. He looked deranged. Celeste laughed softly. She walked closer, her heels clicking on the floor. She stopped a few feet from me, looking me up and down with clinical distaste. And this is your alternative? A human? She's tiny, Ethan. She smells like office supplies and panic. She leaned in, sniffing the air near my shoulder. If you try to mate with her, you'll break her in half. Hey! I snapped, finding my voice. I stepped down from the podium, wobbling slightly in the heels Madame Leclerc had forced onto my feet. I am not breakable, and for your information, I am not the candidate. I am the consultant. Celeste arched a perfect eyebrow. A consultant? Dressed like a concubine? It's a fitting, I gestured to the dress. It's market research. Ethan moved. It was a blur of motion. 1 second he was by the window, the next he was standing between me and Celeste. He didn't touch her. He just placed his massive body in the space between us, creating a wall of charcoal wool and aggression. She is my guest, Ethan said, and if you insult her again, I will forget that you are an alpha and treat you like a trespasser. Celeste's smile faltered. She looked at Ethan's bleeding hand. You're injured, she noted. Losing control, are we? Leave, Ethan said. The air in the room grew heavy, like the pressure drop before a tornado. My ears popped. Celeste sighed. She smoothed her jacket. Fine. I'll see you at the gala tomorrow night, Ethan. Save a dance for me. I have a feeling your little consultant won't last past the appetizers. She turned and walked out, the elevator doors sliding shut behind her. As soon as she was gone, the tension in Ethan's shoulders snapped. He turned to me. The feral look was gone, replaced by a grim, pained focus. Take the dress off, he ordered. What? I blinked. But Madame Leclerc isn't done pinning the— Take it off, Penny. Now. He walked past me toward his desk, grabbing a towel to wrap his hand. Go behind the screen. Change. We're done. Ethan, your hand! I rushed forward, ignoring his order. You're bleeding all over the place. We need to get the glass out. I reached for his hand. He snatched it away, holding it against his chest.
Don't touch me.
Don't be a baby, let me see it. Penny! He roared my name. It echoed off the walls. Do not touch me. The static. If we touch right now with the blood, just don't. I froze. He looked terrified, not of the injury, but of what would happen if we made contact while he was in this state. I watched, horrified, as he unwrapped the towel. The cuts on his palm were deep, jagged trenches. But as I stared, the edges of the skin began to knit together. The blood stopped flowing. The glass shards were pushed out of the skin by some invisible force, tinkling onto the desk. In 10 seconds, the hand was whole again. No scars, just a faint pink line that faded as I watched. I swallowed hard. I knew about werewolf healing, but seeing it up close made my stomach do a slow roll. He wasn't just a man with a temper, he was a monster. A beautiful, terrifying monster. Go home, Ethan said, his voice rough. He wouldn't look at me. The driver is waiting. I'll see you tomorrow night. I changed back into my clothes with shaking hands. When I left the office, Ethan was standing by the window staring out at the city, his healed hand pressed against the glass so hard I thought it might shatter again. Chapter 12. The Fortress of Solitude. Friday morning, solstice day, dawned gray and miserable. I sat on my kitchen floor, eating dry cereals straight from the box because I couldn't bring myself to cook the 50 pounds of elk meat currently thawing in the cooler in my hallway. My apartment was silent. Too silent. Usually, Nana Ruby would be here, watching her soaps at maximum volume or yelling at the toaster. But her room was empty. Her bed hadn't been slept in. I checked my phone for the 100th time. No calls, no texts, just the looming deadline. Today, midnight, $60,000. Trixie hadn't sent a new threat, which was worse. It meant she was done threatening. She was preparing. I looked at the text from Ethan sent at 3 a.m. Car will arrive at 7 p.m. Be ready. Do not leave the apartment before then. E. I'm a prisoner in my own home, I muttered, throwing a cornflake at the wall. A prisoner with high-end beef and a security detail. I walked to the window. Down on the street, 2 large men in black suits were standing by the entrance of the Pringle Arms. They weren't hiding. They were glaring at pedestrians. One of them was eating a bagel in 2 bites. I felt a surge of claustrophobia. I spent the day trying to distract myself. I cleaned the bathroom. I reorganized my spice rack alphabetically. I tried to do a yoga video, but every time the instructor said, "Release your tension," I thought about Ethan's hand crushing that glass and almost pulled a muscle. By 5 p.m., the anxiety was a physical weight, like a boulder sitting on my chest. I needed to do something. I needed to feel prepared. I started the transformation. I showered, scrubbing away the smell of stress. I did my hair, pinning it up in a sleek, severe twist that I hoped said, "I am a professional," and not, "I am hyperventilating." I did my makeup, applying red lipstick that matched the dress like war paint. At 6 p.m., a courier arrived. The guards let him up after presumably strip-searching him. He handed me a long black garment bag and a small velvet box. I opened the bag. The red dress. It had been finished. The hem was perfect, the silk cool to the touch. I opened the velvet box. Inside lay a necklace. It wasn't delicate. It was a heavy silver collar set with rubies that looked like drops of blood. It was beautiful, ancient, and undeniably possessive. A note was tucked under the velvet. "Wear this. It blocks the static. E." I stared at the necklace. He had found a way to stop the shocks? Why? So he could touch me without pain? Or so he could touch me without losing control? I put the dress on. It fit even better than yesterday. It hugged my curves like a secret. I fastened the necklace. The silver felt cold against my throat, heavy and grounding. At 6:55 p.m., my phone rang. It wasn't Ethan. It was Nana. "Nana!" I screamed, nearly dropping my phone. "Where are you? Are you okay?" "Penny, sweetheart." Nana's voice sounded slurried. Background noise, clinking glasses, slot machines. "I'm fine, I'm at the Golden Horseshoe. The casino? Nana, Trixie is looking for you. You need to come home. I can't come home, honey, she giggled. I'm winning. I'm on a streak. I'm going to pay her back, Penny. I just need a few more hours. I put the apartment up as collateral. My blood turned to ice. You did what? It's fine. I'm up $3,000. Just don't wait up. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at my reflection. She had bet the apartment. If she lost, we were homeless. If Trixie found her, we were dead. I had to get to the gala. I had to get that commission. It was the only way. My buzzer rang. The intercom crackled. Miss Pringle, the guard's voice was deep. Mr. Cross is here,
And he says he's coming up.
Chapter 13. The Limo Ride from Hell. I opened the door before he could knock. Ethan filled the hallway. He was wearing a tuxedo. Black, sharply tailored white shirt, black tie. He looked devastating. He looked like the kind of man who owned the night and charged rent for the shadows. He stopped when he saw me. His eyes traveled up from the slit in the dress, over my hips, to the necklace at my throat. His gaze lingered on the silver collar. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping in his cheek. You wore it, he said. His voice was rough, like gravel tumbling down a hill. You said it stops the static, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Does it work? He stepped forward. He reached out and placed his hand on my bare shoulder. I flinched, waiting for the zap. Nothing. Just the warmth of his skin, hay and calloused. No spark, no pain. He let out a breath that sounded like a groan. His thumb brushed my collarbone, tracing the line of the necklace. It works, he murmured. It dampens the magic. It keeps the bond quiet. Quiet is good, I whispered, though my heart was hammering so loud I was sure he could hear it. We have to go, he said, pulling his hand away reluctantly. The car is downstairs. The ride to the gala was torture. The limo was massive, with blacked-out windows and leather seats that smelled like new money. I sat on one side, Ethan sat on the other. The space between us felt charged, despite the necklace. Nana called, I said, breaking the silence. I needed to talk about something other than the way his thigh was inches from mine. Ethan looked at me. Is she safe? She's at a casino. She bet the apartment. Ethan closed his eyes. He pinched the bridge of his nose. I own the apartment building, Penny. She can't bet it. I am the landlord. I blinked. Oh, right. I let out a hysterical little laugh. So she just scammed a casino? It appears so. I'll send a team to retrieve her after the gala. She'll be safe. Thank you, I said softly. Really, you didn't have to do that. I told you, he said, opening his eyes. The blue was intense in the dim light of the car. I protect what is mine. I'm not yours, Ethan, I reminded him. I'm your consultant. He didn't answer. He just looked at me with that heavy, absolute certainty that made my knees weak. The car slowed. We had arrived. Through the tinted windows, I could see the venue, the Obsidian Hall. It was a massive Gothic structure on the edge of the city. A red carpet was rolled out. Cameras were flashing. People, beautiful, terrifying people, were streaming inside. Ready? Ethan asked. No, I admitted. I'm going to throw up. Don't, he said seriously. That dress is silk. It stains. He reached for the door handle. Then he paused. He turned back to me. Penny, tonight, things might get intense. It's the solstice. The instincts are louder. Louder how? Just stay close to me, he commanded. Do not leave my side. Do not talk to any unmated males. And for the love of God, do not agree to any bets with warlock bookies. I'll try to restrain myself. The driver opened the door. The noise of the crowd rushed in, shouting photographers, revving engines. Ethan stepped out first. He buttoned his jacket, adjusted his cuffs, and then turned back, extending his hand to me. I took it. As I stepped out onto the red carpet, 1,000 flashbulbs went off at once, blinding me. But I heard the collective gasp of the crowd. And then a single, loud voice from the paparazzi pit screamed, Who is the human? Chapter 14. The Shark Tank. The ballroom smelled like expensive perfume, ozone, and raw aggression. It was massive, with vaulted ceilings and chandeliers that dripped crystal like frozen tears. But the people were the real spectacle. Vampires in velvet stood in shadowy corners, sipping drinks that were definitely not cranberry juice. Shifters prowled the edges of the dance floor, their movements too fluid, too sharp. I clung to Ethan's arm like a barnacle. "Relax," he murmured against my ear. His breath was hot. "You're shaking." "I'm vibrating," I corrected. "There are so many of them, and that guy over there has yellow eyes, and he's looking at my neck." "That's Alpha Sterling from the River Pack. He's looking at your necklace. He knows what it means." "What does it mean?" Ethan didn't answer. He steered me through the crowd. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea. He was the Alpha King, and the respect and fear was palpable. Heads bowed. Conversations stopped. "Alpha Cross," a voice boomed. A large man with a beard that looked like a bird's nest stepped in front of us. He was holding a leg of lamb, just holding it. "Alpha Vance," Ethan nodded politely. "Good to see you." "And who is this tasty morsel?" Vance asked, grinning at me. A piece of lamb fell from his beard. Ethan's arm tightened around my waist. It was like an iron band. "This is Penny Pringle," Ethan said, his voice dropping to that lethal register. "My guest." "Guest?" Vance laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "She smells like vanilla. If you're not going to eat her, Cross, maybe I will." It happened fast. Ethan released me. He took one step forward. He didn't shift. He didn't even raise his voice. He just looked at Vance, and the air around us seemed to vanish, sucked into a vacuum of pure dominance. "Take another step," Ethan whispered, "and I will mount your head on my wall next to the elk." Vance's grin vanished. He swallowed hard, backed away, and disappeared into the crowd. Ethan turned back to me. He smoothed his jacket. "Are you hungry? The buffet has excellent tartar." "I've lost my appetite," I squeaked. "Good, because Celeste is approaching. 3:00. I looked. Celeste was gliding toward us. She was wearing silver, of course, a gown that looked like liquid mercury. She looked like a queen. "Ethan," she purred, ignoring me completely. "You made it, and you brought the pet. How quaint." "Celeste," Ethan acknowledged, "you look desperate." She stiffened. "I look victorious. The European delegation is here. They are waiting for us in the VIP lounge. They want to see the happy couple." She extended her arm to him. "Shall we?" Ethan looked at her arm, then he looked at me. "Go," I whispered. "It's the deal. Secure the merger." Ethan hesitated. He looked torn. His eyes were flicking between me and the lounge. The wolf in him clearly didn't want to leave me. "I will return in 10 minutes, he promised me. "Stay here. By the punch bowl. Do not move." "I'll be fine," I lied. "Go save your company." He walked away with Celeste. I watched them go. They looked perfect together. Tall, powerful, terrifying. A matched set. I felt a pang in my chest that felt suspiciously like heartbreak. I turned to the punch bowl, pouring myself a glass of something blue and fizzy. "He's using you, you know." I spun around. It wasn't Celeste. It was a woman I hadn't seen before. She was small, pale, with dark hair and eyes that looked like empty pits. She was holding a fan made of black feathers. "Excuse me?" "Ethan," the woman said. Her voice was like dry leaves. "He put that collar on you to dampen his bond, but it won't work. The solstice demands a mate." "I'm just a consultant," I said automatically. "No," the woman smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "You are the bait. Celeste isn't the threat tonight, dear. She's just the distraction." Before I could ask what she meant, the lights in the ballroom flickered and died. Pitch blackness descended, and in the dark, I felt a cold, wet cloth press against my mouth. Chapter 15. The Darkness. Chloroform smells sweet. That's something movies don't tell you. It smells like sickly sweet chemical flowers. I held my breath, struggling. My taser was in my purse, but my arms were pinned to my sides. I kicked out, my heel connecting with a shin. A man grunted. "Hold her still," a voice hissed in the dark. It wasn't the pale woman. It was a man's voice, rough. "The collar! Get the collar off!" another voice whispered. I felt cold fingers fumbling at my throat. They were trying to unclasp the ruby necklace. Why? It blocks the static. It keeps the bond quiet. If they took it off, Ethan would feel me. He would feel my panic. Click. The necklace fell away. Instantly, the world exploded. It wasn't a sound. It was a sensation. A psychic scream that ripped through my brain. It was pure, unfiltered terror, but it wasn't mine. It was his. Somewhere in the dark across the ballroom, I felt Ethan. It was like being tethered to a nuclear bomb that had just detonated. "Penny!" His roar shattered the windows. The lights flickered back on. I was being dragged toward the emergency exit by two large men in waiter uniforms. The pale woman was holding the door open, but no one was looking at us. Everyone was looking at the VIP lounge balcony. Ethan was there. He wasn't human anymore, not fully. He had vaulted over the railing. He was mid-air, falling 20 feet to the ballroom floor. His tuxedo jacket was shredded. His eyes were glowing like blue suns. His teeth were bared, fangs fully extended. He landed on the marble floor in a crouch, cracking the stone. The two men holding me froze. Ethan slowly stood up. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at Celeste screaming from the balcony. He locked eyes with the man holding my left arm. "Let her go!" The voice wasn't human speech. It was the sound of tectonic plates shifting. It was the alpha voice. The man whimpered and dropped my arm, but the pale woman by the door didn't look scared. She looked smug. "Now!" she shrieked. The man on my right pulled a knife. He didn't aim it at me. He aimed it at the necklace he was holding in his other hand. "One step, Wolf," the man yelled, "and I break the dampener. You'll feel everything. You'll go mad." Ethan froze. He was vibrating with rage, his claws digging into his palms. "Penny," he choked out, "run to me." "I can't," I yelled. The man with the knife grabbed my hair, yanking my head back. The blade hovered near my throat now. "We don't want the girl," the pale woman said. "We want the contract. Sign the territory over to the River Pack, Cross, or we paint the walls with your little human." The River Pack? Who were they? Ethan's gaze flicked to me. I saw the calculation in his eyes. He was assessing the distance. 30 feet. Too far. Even for him. "I'll sign," Ethan said. He fell to his knees. The Alpha King on his knees. The crowd gasped. "No!" I screamed. "Ethan, don't!" "Smart boy," the man with the knife sneered. He relaxed slightly. That was his mistake. He forgot about the one variable in the room that wasn't supernatural. The one variable that had a gambling addiction and impeccable timing. A heavy, rhinestone-encrusted purse flew out of the crowd and smacked the knife man square in the face. "Get your hands off my granddaughter, you cheap thug!" Nana Ruby stepped out from behind a velvet curtain, flanked by two bouncers from the casino. The man stumbled, the knife wavering. That was all Ethan needed. He moved. He was a blur of black smoke and violence. He crossed the 30 feet in a heartbeat. He hit the man like a freight train. The man went flying into a table of champagne flutes. Ethan scooped me up, one arm under my knees, one around my back. He pulled me against his chest, burying his face in my neck, skin on skin. No necklace. Zap. The static hit us both. But this time it didn't hurt. It felt like coming home. It felt like a lock clicking into place. "Mine," he growled into my skin. "Mine, mine, mine." He turned to face the room, carrying me like a prize. The pale woman was gone. Nana Ruby was standing there, fixing her hair. "Well," Nana said to the stunned silence, "that's one way to make an entrance. Who has a cigarette?" Chapter 16. The Verdict. The silence in the obsidian hall was heavier than the crystal chandeliers overhead. I was pressed against Ethan's chest, my feet dangling a few inches off the marble floor. His arms were iron bands wrapped around me, one under my knees, one across my back. His tuxedo jacket was in ribbons, revealing the white shirt underneath, which was now stained with sweat and the blood of the man he'd just thrown through a table. I could feel the rumble in his chest before I heard it. A low, continuous vibration. Mine, mine, mine. Well, Nana Ruby's voice cut through the tension like a chainsaw. She snapped her lighter shut, inhaling a puff of smoke. Is the open bar still open? Fighting makes me thirsty. Ethan didn't look at Nana. He didn't look at the unconscious attacker bleeding into the champagne flutes. He was scanning the perimeter, his head snapping left and right with jerky, bird-like movements. His eyes were still glowing that electric, terrifying blue. "Ethan," I whispered, resting my hand on his shoulder. He flinched, but not from pain. He leaned into my touch, rubbing his cheek against my palm. The static was there, a hum of electricity that traveled down my arm and settled in my stomach, but it wasn't the sharp crack of rejection anymore. It felt like sticking your hand out of a car window on a warm highway. Anchoring. "Safe," he rasped. "You. Safe." "I'm safe," I promised, "but everyone is staring." A slow clapping started from the VIP balcony. We all looked up. The European delegation, 3 men who looked like Vikings poured into Armani suits, were standing at the railing. The leader, a man with a beard braided with gold rings, was applauding. "Impressive," the Viking boomed. "We were told the Obsidian Alpha had gone soft, that he was looking for a trophy wife." Celeste, standing a few feet away from them, looked like she had swallowed a lemon. Her silver dress shimmered as she gripped the railing. "He is unstable," Celeste shrieked. "Look at him! He's feral! He brought a human to the solstice! He's compromised!" The Viking ignored her. He looked down at Ethan, who was still growling softly. "He defended his mate," the Viking said, nodding approvingly. "And he defended his territory. We like this. Strength is the only currency we recognize." He raised a glass. "We will discuss the papers on Monday, Cross, provided you don't eat your staff before then." Celeste screamed in frustration, turned on her heel, and stormed back into the VIP lounge. Ethan didn't care. The politics meant nothing to him right now. He only cared that the threat was neutralized. "We leave," Ethan stated. "Now." "My shoes," I said, looking down. My heels were gone, likely lost somewhere between the kidnapping and the rescue. "I'm barefoot." "I carry," he grunted. "You can't carry me out of here. I'm a professional consultant." He ignored me. He turned to Nana Ruby, who was currently looting a bottle of Dom Perignon from a passing waiter's tray. "Grandmother," Ethan said. It was a command, not a greeting. "With us." Nana winked at him. "Lead the way, Wolfie. My feet are killing me anyway." Ethan marched us out of the ballroom. The sea of vampires and shifters parted instantly. No one made eye contact. No one offered a business card. They smelled the ozone coming off him and realized that tonight, the king wasn't looking for a deal. He was looking for a throat. We burst out into the cool night air. The limo was waiting, engine running. The driver took one look at Ethan's glowing eyes and shredded clothes and scrambled to open the back door. Ethan deposited me onto the leather seat but didn't let go. He slid in right next to me, pulling me into his lap. "Ethan, there are seats," I protested weakly. "No." He buried his face in my neck, inhaling deeply. "Close." Nana climbed in opposite us, clutching her purse and the stolen champagne. She looked at us, me sitting sideways on the lap of a half-shifted werewolf, and grinned. "Well," she said, popping the cork, "best date night I've had in decades. Who wants a drink?" As the car peeled away, I looked out the back window. The pale woman, the one who had opened the door for the kidnappers, was standing on the sidewalk. She wasn't running. She was watching us leave. And she was smiling. Chapter 17. The Jackpot. The privacy partition was up. The limo was a dark cocoon hurtling through the city streets. I was trapped under approximately 200 pounds of alpha male. Ethan had his arms wrapped around my waist, his head resting on my shoulder. His breathing was starting to slow down, the frantic huff, huff, huff of the wolf giving way to deep, ragged human breaths. But he wouldn't let go. Every time I tried to shift position, his grip tightened, and a low rumble started in his chest. "Okay," I said, looking across the aisle at Nana. "Explain. Now!" Nana took a swig of champagne straight from the bottle. "Explain what, darling? The rescue? I have excellent aim. I used to play softball in the 60s. "The bouncers, Nana, and the money. You said you bet the apartment." "Oh, that." She dug into her oversized rhinestone purse. It clinked heavily. She pulled out a thick bundle of cash wrapped in a rubber band, then another, then another. "I didn't bet the apartment," she admitted, tossing a stack of hundreds onto the empty seat. "I just told you that so you'd worry. Motivation, sweetheart." "You lied to me?" "I bluffed. I'm a poker player, Penny. Bluffs are my business." She patted the stacks of cash. $80,000. I hit the jackpot on a slot machine called Zeus's Revenge. Then I used $2,000 to bribe the bouncers to drive me to the gala because I figured you'd need a ride home. I stared at the money. It was enough. It was more than enough. We could pay Trixie. We could fix the heater. We could buy actual groceries. "We're safe," I whispered, sagging against Ethan. "We can pay Trixie." Ethan went still. He lifted his head from my shoulder. The blue glow in his eyes had faded to a deep, dark ocean color, but the intensity was still there. "No," he said. His voice was raspy, unused. "What do you mean, no? We have the cash." "The attack," Ethan said, forming the words carefully. "The man with the knife. He was Riverpack. But the woman, the pale one—" "She was with them," I said. "She smelled like sulfur," Ethan said, "like burnt sage and sulfur." I froze. "Trixie?" "Trixie," Ethan confirmed. "She wasn't looking for money, Penny. She was the one who let the kidnappers in." The realization hit me like a slap. Trixie hadn't been hounding us for the debt because she wanted cash. She was squeezing us to force desperation. She wanted me vulnerable. She wanted to use me to get to Ethan. "The debt was a lie," Nana whispered, the champagne bottle lowered. She looked suddenly old. "She played me?" "She played all of us," Ethan growled. He reached out and touched the red mark on my neck where the necklace had been. "She wanted the dampener off. She wanted me to lose control in front of the council so the Riverpack could challenge my claim." "So paying her won't work," I said, looking at the useless piles of money. "No," Ethan said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked, but it worked. He typed a code. "Where are we going?" I asked as the limo took a sharp turn, heading away from the city and toward the mountains. "This isn't the way to the apartment." "The apartment is compromised," Ethan said. "Trixie knows the codes. She knows the guards." "So where are we going?" Ethan looked at me, his hand sliding down to rest possessively on my knee. "My territory," he said. "The one place no witch can enter without burning to ash." The limo turned onto a gravel road. Through the trees, I saw a gate. It wasn't a normal gate. It was 20 feet tall, made of iron and bone, and it was glowing with ancient runes. We were leaving the human world behind. Chapter 18. The Den. The safe house wasn't a house. It was a fortress of glass and timber built into the side of a cliff, overlooking a valley of endless pine trees. The car stopped. The driver didn't get out. Ethan tapped the roof twice, a signal, and the car sped away instantly. He didn't want any witnesses at the safe house. "Nana," Ethan said, pointing to a smaller guest cabin about 50 yards from the main house. It looked cozy, with smoke already curling from the chimney. "Guest quarters, fully stocked, wine cellar in the basement, Netflix." Nana looked at the cabin, then at Ethan, then at me. She smirked. "I can take a hint. Don't do anything I wouldn't do." She grabbed her bag of money and the champagne and trotted off toward the guest house, leaving me alone with the wolf. The air up here was thin and cold. I shivered, wrapping my arms around myself. I was still barefoot, the gravel biting into my skin. Ethan made a low noise in his throat. He scooped me up again. "I can walk," I said automatically. "Gravel sharp," he grunted. He kicked the front door open. Inside, the house was massive. High ceilings, a fireplace big enough to roast an ox, and furniture that looked like it was made from entire trees. It smelled like him, cedar, fire, and dominance. He carried me through the living room, down a hallway, and into the master bedroom. It was sparse, a wall of windows looking out at the moon, and a bed. The bed was enormous. It was a California king, but it looked even bigger because it was the only piece of furniture in the room. No chairs, no dressers, just a massive nest of furs and pillows. He set me down on the edge of the mattress. "Stay," he ordered. He disappeared into the bathroom.
I heard water running.
I sat there looking at my ruined dress. The silk was torn at the hem. My feet were dirty from the ballroom floor. I felt gross, sticky with sweat and champagne and fear. Ethan returned. He had a warm, wet washcloth in his hand. He knelt on the floor in front of me. "Ethan, I can do it," I said, reaching for the cloth. He pulled it back. "No." He took my left foot in his massive hand. His grip was gentle, surprisingly so for a man who had just dismantled a hit squad. He wiped the dirt from my sole, his thumb massaging the arch of my foot. The sensation was overwhelming. The heat from his hand traveled up my leg. "You're the king," I whispered, watching him clean my toes. "You shouldn't be kneeling." He looked up. His eyes were dark, heavy with exhaustion and need. "I kneel for my queen," he said simply.
My heart stopped.
"I'm not your queen, Ethan. The contract—" "Burn the contract," he growled. He switched to my other foot. "There is no contract. Not anymore." "But the European merger? The river pack?" "I don't care." He finished cleaning my feet and tossed the cloth aside. He rested his hands on my knees, spreading them slightly so he could step between my legs. "I only care that you smell like fear, and other males." He leaned forward, burying his face in my stomach, inhaling deeply through the silk of my dress. "I need to scent you," he murmured against my skin. "I need to cover their smell with mine." "Ethan," I warned, my hands tangling in his messy hair. "You're still in fight mode. You're not thinking clearly." "Thinking clearly?" he argued. He looked up, and the raw vulnerability in his face broke me. "Penny,
Please.
It wasn't a command. It was a plea. He stood up and pulled his tattered shirt over his head. His chest was a landscape of muscle and scars, but one scar stood out, a fresh, angry red mark right over his heart. It matched the static burn on my neck perfectly. Chapter 19. The Anchor. I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a second, I thought I was back in my apartment. Then I felt the mattress. It was like sleeping on a cloud made of memory foam, and I remembered. The kidnapping, the gala, the cabin. I sat up. I was wearing one of Ethan's shirts. It hung to my knees, smelling like cedar and expensive detergent. Ethan was sitting in a chair by the window. He must have dragged it in from another room. He was fully dressed in jeans and a black sweater. He looked human again. The glowing eyes were gone, placed by his usual icy blue. But he looked tired. Shadows bruised the skin under his eyes. "You're awake," he said. His voice was scratchy. "You watched me sleep," I accused, rubbing my eyes. "I was guarding," he corrected. He held out a mug. "Coffee, 3 sugars, no cream." He remembered my order. I took the mug. Our fingers brushed. Instead of the zap or the violent crack, a warm, golden hum vibrated through my hand. It felt like drinking hot cocoa on a snow day. It was nice. Terrifyingly nice. "The static changed," I whispered, looking at my hand. "Acceptance," Ethan said. He didn't look at me. He looked out the window at the forest. The bond starts as friction, 2 currents fighting each other. But when the connection is acknowledged, When the danger forces the walls down,
The current synchronizes.
so we're synchronized? I took a sip of coffee. Because last night you were pretty sure I was yours. You are mine, he said instantly. Then he sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. But I know you haven't agreed to it. I know you're human. I know this is a lot. A lot? Ethan, a woman tried to slit my throat because of your real estate portfolio. It's not real estate, he said. He turned to face me. The river pack, Lydia, Trixie, it connects. Lydia, the dentist date? She's the Alpha's daughter of the river pack. They've been trying to get access to the North Ridge for years. What's on the North Ridge? Nothing, Ethan said. Just an old mine, but it sits on a ley line, a magic vein. If they control it, they can amplify their power. They could challenge the council. So they tried to marry you to Lydia to get it, I deduced. And when you rejected her, they hired Trixie to squeeze your grandmother, hoping to force me into a position where I'd trade the land for your safety. And you almost did, I whispered. Last night, you were going to sign. I would give them the world if it meant you were safe, he said. He stood up and walked over to the bed. He sat on the edge, careful not to touch me. That's the problem, Ethan, I said, putting the coffee down. You'd give them the world because I'm your mate, because of the biology, the hormones. I looked him in the eye. Do you even like me? Or is this just the wolf brain telling you I'm the one? Ethan looked offended. Like you? Penny, I hate everyone. I tolerate my own pack. I barely speak to my sister.
But you...
He reached out, his hand hovering near my face. You walked into my office in a thrift store blazer and told the Alpha King his tie was crooked. You organized my life. You fed my ego and then deflated it 5 seconds later. He touched my cheek. The warmth flooded me. The wolf chose you because you smell like home, he whispered. The man chose you because you're the only person who isn't afraid to tell him no. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm a little afraid. Good, he smirked. Keep you on your toes. He leaned in. His lips were inches from mine. Suddenly, he pulled back, hissing in pain. He gripped the edge of the bed so hard the wood splintered. Sweat beaded instantly on his forehead. Ethan? Run, he gasped, his eyes flashing gold. Get out of the room.
Lock the door.
Chapter 20. The Fever. I'm not running, I said, staying exactly where I was. What's wrong? Is it the river pack? Are they here? No, Ethan groaned, doubling over. He clawed at his chest, ripping the black sweater. His skin was flushing a deep, angry red. Heat radiated off him in waves. It was like sitting next to an open oven door. It's the rut, he choked out. The bond. Last night. We opened it, but we didn't complete it. Complete it? My face burned. Oh! My wolf is demanding. He gritted his teeth, his canines extending. It thinks you're rejecting me again because I haven't claimed you. He stood up, stumbling away from the bed. He slammed his back against the wall, trying to put distance between us. Get out, Penny. Go to Nana's cabin. I can ride it out. It takes 3 days.
I'll lock myself in.
3 days? I stood up. You're going to suffer for 3 days? If I stay in here with you, he panted, staring at the floor. I won't be gentle. I won't be human. I can't control it. I looked at him. The most powerful creature in the city, reduced to a shivering, sweating mess because he was trying so hard not to hurt me. He had bought my building. He had fought a hit squad. He had knelt and washed my feet. I was done being the consultant. I walked across the room. Penny, stop, he warned, his voice a low, threatening rumble. I'm telling you, I'm dangerous. I know, I said. I stopped right in front of him. I could feel the heat coming off his body. It was intoxicating. The scent of him, cedar and spice, was so thick I could taste it. You said the static changed, I whispered.
You said it synchronized.
It did, he groaned, squeezing his eyes shut. But the hunger, it consumes. Then let it. I reached out and placed my hand flat on his bare chest, right over his pounding heart. The connection slammed into us. It wasn't just warmth this time. It was a golden fire. It snapped the last thread of his restraint. Ethan's eyes snapped open. They were entirely gold, no blue left. "You didn't run," he growled. "No." He grabbed my waist. He didn't lift me this time. He backed me up against the wall, his body caging mine. He was heavy, hard, and shaking with need. "Last chance," he whispered against my lips. "Say stop." "Don't you dare stop," I breathed. He kissed me. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was a collision. It was teeth and tongue and desperation. He devoured me. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pull him closer, trying to fuse our bodies together. The world narrowed down to this: the heat, the scent, the man. We stumbled toward the bed. He ripped the duvet off, not wanting anything between us. He pressed me down into the mattress, hovering over me like the predator he was. "Mine," he snarled. "Yours," I answered. Just as his hand slid up my thigh, a siren began to wail. It was a high-pitched, mechanical scream that echoed through the valley. The perimeter alarm. Ethan froze. He looked at the window. "They found us!" he roared.
Chapter 21.
The Golden Haze. The siren cut through the room, a mechanical scream that shattered the intimacy of the moment. Ethan froze over me. His skin was burning, hot enough to radiate through the thin fabric of the black shirt I was wearing. His eyes were no longer blue. They were twin pools of molten gold, devoid of any human recognition. "Stay," he snarled. It wasn't a word, it was a vibration that rattled my ribcage. He rolled off the bed, landing on his feet with a heavy thud. He swayed, grabbing the wall for support. The fever was eating him alive. His muscles twitched spasmodically, fighting the urge to collapse. "Ethan," I whispered, scrambling to the edge of the bed. "You can't fight. You can barely stand." "They are here," he gasped. He stumbled toward the window, peering through the slats of the blinds. "Wolves, 4 of them.
And the witch.
Trixie?" "She's breaking the wards," Ethan said, his voice thick. "I can smell the sulfur." He turned back to me. The look on his face was terrifying. It was pure, unfiltered possession. "Lock the door. Do not open it unless you hear my voice. If anyone else tries to come in, use the gun." "What gun?" He pointed to the nightstand. I opened the drawer. There was a matte black handgun sitting next to a Bible. "Ethan, I don't know how to use a gun. I'm a matchmaker. I use spreadsheets." "Point and pull," he ordered. He moved toward the bedroom door. He didn't open it. He ripped it off the hinges. The wood splintered like balsa. He didn't even notice. He stormed into the hallway, a juggernaut of rage and instinct. I ran to the window. Outside, the pristine white snow was being churned up by dark shapes. 4 massive wolves, shifters, were circling the main house. They were testing the perimeter, snapping at the invisible barrier of the wards. But it was the figure standing near the tree line that made my blood run cold. Trixie. She was chanting, her hands glowing with a sickly green light. She threw a handful of powder at the invisible dome surrounding the property. The air shimmered and cracked like breaking glass. The wards were down. Then I saw where she was looking. Not at the main house. She was looking at the guest cabin. "Nana," I breathed. Nana was in there, with the money. And Trixie probably smelled the magic of the cash, or just sensed the easy target. I heard the front door of the main house explode outward. Ethan roared, a sound that shook the snow from the trees. He launched himself off the porch, shifting mid-air. It wasn't a smooth shift. It was violent. One second he was a man in jeans, the next he was a massive midnight black wolf, larger than any of the intruders. But he stumbled when he landed. The rut fever made him clumsy. 2 of the enemy wolves lunged at him instantly. "No!" I screamed, banging on the glass. I looked at the gun in my hand, then I looked at the guest cabin. Trixie was walking toward it, a ball of fire forming in her palm. Ethan was occupied. He was tearing into the throat of a gray wolf, but 2 others were flanking him, biting at his hamstrings. He couldn't get to Nana. I was the only one left. I threw the gun on the bed. I didn't need a weapon I couldn't use. I needed something chaotic. I ran to the living room and grabbed the heavy iron fire poker and a bottle of high-proof whiskey from the bar cart.
Chapter 22. The Breakout.
I kicked the back door open. The cold mountain air hit me like a physical slap. I was barefoot, wearing nothing but a man's dress shirt that barely covered my thighs. The snow burned my skin instantly. I didn't care. "Hey!" I screamed, sprinting across the 50 yards of open ground between the houses. "Hey, Wicked Witch of the West!" Trixie spun around. She looked surprised to see a half-naked human charging at her with a fireplace tool. "Pringle?" she cackled, the fireball in her hand flaring brighter. "You should have stayed inside, girlie. I'm going to roast your grandmother and take my money." "Over my dead body!" I yelled. I didn't stop running. I uncorked the whiskey bottle as I ran, spraying the amber liquid toward her. Trixie laughed. "Alcohol? Really?" She threw the fireball at me. I dove into a snowbank. The fire roared over my head, singing my hair. But the heat did something else. It ignited the whiskey I had sprayed into the air. Whoosh! A wall of blue flame erupted between us, momentarily blinding her. "Nana, open the door!" I shrieked, scrambling up and throwing myself at the guest cabin entrance. The door flew open. Nana Ruby stood there, wearing a silk kimono and holding a frying pan. She looked hungover but furious. "Get in!" she yelled, dragging me inside. She slammed the door and threw the deadbolt. Then she dragged a heavy dresser in front of it. "Did you bring the money?" I asked, shivering violently. My feet were already numb. "It's in the bag," Nana said, gesturing to a duffel on the bed. "What is happening out there?" I ran to the window. The scene outside was a nightmare. Ethan was fighting 3 wolves now. He was a whirlwind of teeth and claws, but he was moving sluggishly. His golden eyes were glazed. Every time he took a step, he staggered. The fever was slowing his reaction time. A brown wolf clamped its jaws onto Ethan's shoulder. Ethan roared, twisting to snap the wolf's spine, but another wolf slammed into his flank, knocking him into the snow. "He's losing," I whispered, pressing my hand against the glass. "The fever. He's too weak." Suddenly, Ethan stopped fighting. He froze, his ears swiveling toward our cabin. He lifted his massive head and looked right at me through the window. Even across the distance, I felt the bond slam into my chest. He knew I had left the safe house. He knew I was in danger. And it broke him. He threw his head back and let out a howl that wasn't a battle cry. It was a cry of pure, agonizing despair. Then he collapsed. The wolves piled onto him, pinning him to the frozen ground. "No!" I screamed, clawing at the window. From the smoke of the whiskey fire, a new figure emerged, walking calmly toward the pile of wolves. It was a woman. She was wearing a white parka and holding a silver leash. Lydia. Lydia stopped in front of the fallen, pinned Alpha King. She knelt down and clipped the silver leash onto his neck. "Good boy," she smiled. Then she looked at our cabin and pointed. "Bring me the human." Chapter 23. The Interview, Part 2. The door to the guest cabin didn't last long. Trixie blew the hinges off with a blast of kinetic energy that sent the dresser flying. Nana and I were thrown backward. I hit the wall hard, the breath knocked out of me. 2 wolves squeezed into the small room. They didn't attack. They just grabbed us. One grabbed Nana by her kimono, the other grabbed me by the back of Ethan's shirt, dragging me out into the snow. "Get your paws off my silk!" Nana shouted, smacking the wolf on the nose with her frying pan. It growled but didn't bite her. They had orders. They dragged us into the center of the clearing. Ethan was still on the ground, pinned by 2 massive shifters. He was conscious, but barely. His golden eyes were fixed on me, wide and panicked. He whined, a low, broken sound, struggling against the weight on his back. The silver leash around his neck pulsed with a dull purple light. Magic, I realized. It's suppressing him. Lydia was standing over him, holding the end of the leash. She looked impeccable, her makeup perfect despite the mountain wind. "Well," Lydia said, looking me up and down, "you look terrible, Penny. Is that Ethan's shirt? How cliché." "Lydia," I gasped, the snow biting into my bare legs. "Let him go. He's sick. He needs help." He's in rut, Lydia corrected coldly. I know, I can smell it. It's disgusting. But it's also useful. It makes him suggestible. She yanked on the leash. Ethan choked, his body spasming. Stop it! I yelled, trying to lunge at her. The wolf holding me tightened its grip, claws digging into my arm. We have a deal to make, Lydia said, pulling a folded document from her parka pocket. My father, Alpha Sterling, is very impatient. He wants the Northridge, and I want to be queen. She walked over to me, getting right in my face. She smelled like peppermint and arrogance. Here is the plan, she said. Ethan signs the territory over to my father. Then he rejects you. Formally breaks the bond. He won't do that, I spat. Oh, he will, Lydia smiled. She turned to Trixie, who was hovering nearby, nursing a singed eyebrow. Show her. Trixie stepped forward. She pointed a gnarled finger at Nana Ruby. No! I screamed. Trixie muttered a word. Nana gasped. She dropped the frying pan. Her hands flew to her throat. She started to choke, lifting off the ground as if an invisible noose was tightening around her neck. Nana! Sign the papers, Ethan, Lydia shouted at the wolf on the ground. Shift and sign, or the old woman dies right now. Ethan thrashed, his claws tearing deep gouges in the frozen earth. He looked from me to Nana. The conflict in his eyes was tearing him apart. His instinct was to protect his mate, but his mate loved the old woman. Slowly, painfully, Ethan's form began to blur. Bones cracked and reshaped. The massive black wolf shrank, shifting back into the man. He lay naked in the snow, shivering violently, the silver collar now loose around his human neck. He looked wrecked. Sweat poured off him, freezing on his skin. Don't, he rasped, reaching a hand toward me. Penny. Give him the pen, Lydia ordered. She shoved a pen into Ethan's shaking hand and placed the document on a flat rock in front of him. Sign it, Alpha, Lydia hissed, and then say the words, I reject you, Penny Pringle. Ethan gripped the pen. He looked at Nana, whose face was turning purple. He looked at me, tears streaming down his face. He touched the pen to the paper. He choked out. Then he stabbed the pen into Lydia's boot. Chapter 24. The Matchmaker's Gambit. Lydia shrieked, stumbling back. Kill them! She screamed, but Ethan didn't attack. He couldn't. He collapsed face first into the snow, the effort of the stab exhausting his last reserve of energy. The wolves growled, tightening their circle. Trixie raised her hand to finish Nana off. Wait! I screamed. Stop! I'll do it! Everyone froze. Even Trixie paused, Nana dangling in midair. You'll do what? Lydia sneered, clutching her bleeding foot. I'll make him sign, I said, my voice trembling. And I'll make him reject me. But you have to let Nana go first. Lydia laughed. Why would you do that? Because I'm a matchmaker, I said, my brain spinning frantically. And I know a bad match when I see one. Look at him, Lydia. I pointed at Ethan, who was groaning in the snow. He's a mess. He's broken. He's obsessed with me. If you kill Nana, he will go insane. He will hunt you down and kill you, even if it takes 100 years. You know that. Alphas don't forgive the death of family. I stepped forward, shaking off the wolf holding me. To my surprise, it let me go. I walked toward Lydia, ignoring the cold. But if he rejects me, I lowered my voice, then he's free. He's yours. You want to be queen, right? You don't want a broken king. You want a partner. Lydia hesitated. I had tapped into her vanity. Let Nana go, I said softly. Let me talk to him. I can convince him. I know his buttons. Lydia narrowed her eyes. She looked at Trixie. Drop the hag. Trixie scowled but lowered her hand. Nana fell into the snow, gasping for air. You have 2 minutes, Lydia hissed. Then everyone dies. I ran to Ethan. I fell to my knees in the snow beside him. He was burning up, his skin radiating that terrifying heat. Penny, he mumbled, his eyes rolling back. Run. I'm not running, I whispered, leaning down so my lips brushed his ear. Listen to me, Ethan. Do you trust me? Yes, he breathed. Okay, I need you to do exactly what I say. I need you to get angry. Too weak. No, you're not, I hissed. You're the Alpha King. And do you know what Lydia said about you? She said you were easy. She said you were a good boy. I felt a tremor go through him, a spark of genuine rage. She put a leash on you, Ethan. She treated you like a pet. I placed my hands on his bare chest. The cold air vanished. The heat from his body flowed into me, and something else flowed back. The hum. The anchor. I wasn't just comforting him, I was feeding him. Take it, I whispered, pushing every ounce of my own adrenaline, my own anger down the bond. Take my strength.
Take everything.
Ethan's eyes snapped open. The gold was swirling, darkening. She's sitting in my chair, I whispered the code word. The trigger. Ethan's hand shot out. He grabbed my wrist. His grip was bruising. Mine, he snarled. He didn't shift. He didn't need to. He stood up, the silver collar snapping like a twig around his neck. The explosion of power knocked me backward into the snow. He turned to Lydia. He wasn't shivering anymore. You, he said, his voice sounding like a landslide. You touched my mate. Chapter 25. The Ley Line. The clearing erupted into chaos. Ethan didn't attack like a wolf this time. He attacked like a force of nature. He moved faster than the eye could follow. He grabbed the nearest wolf, the brown one, and threw it 50 feet into the trees. It didn't get up. Kill him! Lydia screamed, limping backward. The remaining 3 wolves lunged. Ethan caught the first one mid-air, slamming it into the frozen ground with a sickening crunch. He spun and backhanded the second one, sending it flying into the side of the guest cabin. He was unstoppable. The rut fever, fueled by my adrenaline and his own rage, had turned him into a berserker. Trixie panicked. She started chanting, raising her hands to cast a binding spell. Nana! I yelled. The money! Nana Ruby, who was still on her knees recovering, understood instantly. She grabbed the massive, oversized rhinestone purse she had dragged out with her. She didn't throw the cash, she threw the whole purse. The heavy, crystal-encrusted bag hit Trixie in the back of the knees like a wrecking ball. The witch stumbled, her spell misfiring. A bolt of green energy shot wild, hitting the ground right beneath Ethan's feet. The ground groaned. We were on the North Ridge, the ley line. The magic hit the vein of power deep in the earth. The ground cracked open. A fissure of blinding white light shot upward. Ethan was standing right in the center of it. He roared as the raw magic hit him. It should have vaporized him. Instead, he absorbed it. The gold in his eyes turned to blinding white. The tattoos on his arms flared, burning through his skin. He turned to Lydia. Lydia was paralyzed with fear. She stared at the godlike figure towering over her. Please, she whimpered. My father, he made me. Ethan raised his hand. The snow around them melted instantly, turning to steam. I don't care about your father, Ethan said, his voice echoing from everywhere at once. I care that you leashed me. He stepped forward. Lydia scrambled back, falling into the mud. Ethan, stop! I yelled, running toward him. He froze. He turned his head slowly to look at me. His face was a mask of white light. He didn't look human. He didn't look like my Ethan. He's losing himself, Trixie whispered, terrified. He's absorbing the ley line. He's going to explode. Ethan! I shouted, ignoring the heat radiating from him. Look at me! It's Penny! It's the consultant! He didn't blink. He raised his hand toward me. I didn't run away. I ran to him. I threw myself at him, wrapping my arms around his burning waist. Come back! I screamed into his chest. Come back to me! Skin on skin, the anchor. The white light flared once, blindingly bright, and then it vanished. The energy rushed out of him, grounding itself through me and into the earth. The hum in my head became a deafening roar, and then silence. Ethan collapsed. I fell with him, cushioning his head as we hit the mud. He was unconscious. His skin was cool. The tattoos were faded. Silence fell over the clearing. The wolves were dead or fled. Lydia was gone. She had run while he was distracted. Trixie was sitting in the snow, hands raised in surrender. I looked down at Ethan. He wasn't moving. "Ethan?" I shook him. "Ethan!" He didn't breathe. I pressed my ear to his chest. Nothing. His heart had stopped. Chapter 26. The Jumpstart. 1, 2, 3, breathe! My voice sounded strange, thin, detached. It didn't sound like a woman screaming in the snow. It sounded like a metronome counting down a disaster. I pressed my hands into the center of Ethan's chest and pushed. His skin was cold. Not cool, cold. The supernatural heat that had radiated off him minutes ago, the heat that had felt like standing next to a blast furnace, was gone. "Come on," I gritted out, locking my elbows. "Don't you dare die. Do not make me a widow before I'm even a wife. That is terrible for my credit score." I pumped his chest hard. Mud squelched around my knees. My bare feet were numb blocks of ice, but I couldn't feel them. I could only feel the stillness under my hands. "He's gone, girlie," a voice rasped. I whipped my head around. Trixie was sitting in the snow a few feet away, clutching her singed robes. She looked terrified, but resigned. "Shut up!" I screamed. "Help him! You're a witch! Fix him!" "I can't," Trixie shook her head. "He absorbed a ley line. It burned his circuits. His heart didn't just stop. The magic seized it. It's like pouring lightning into a toaster. Then pour it back out." "I don't have the power," Trixie said, shivering. "And even if I did, why would I? If he wakes up, he kills me." I stopped compressions for 1 second. I looked at Nana Ruby. Nana was holding the duffel bag. She unzipped it. She pulled out a stack of $100 bills. "Trixie," Nana said, her voice steel. $80,000, cash, untraceable." Trixie's eyes widened. She licked her lips. I can't restart a heart." "No," I said, a dangerous idea forming in my brain. I looked at Ethan's stillness. I remembered the static, the way the bond felt like a live wire. "But you can act as a conductor." "What?" "The bond," I said, grabbing Ethan's hand. It was limp. "The static. It's electricity, right? Magic electricity. If I push it into him and you amplify it, it could fry your brain," Trixie warned. "It could stop your heart." "Do it," I commanded. "Nana, give her the money." Nana tossed the bundle of cash at Trixie. The witch caught it, sighing. Greed was a powerful motivator. "Fine," Trixie crawled over. "Put your hand over his heart. I'll place mine on top of yours. When I chant, you push. Push everything you feel. The fear, the anger, the love, whatever." I placed my hand on his cold chest. Trixie's gnarled hand covered mine. Her skin felt like dry parchment. "Now!" Trixie yelled. I closed my eyes. I didn't think about the cold. I thought about the first time I saw him in that elevator. The way he growled at the waiter. The way he looked when he washed my feet. "Come back." I shoved the feeling down my arm. Zap! It wasn't a spark this time. It was a thunderclap. A bolt of pure white agony shot up my arm, rattling my teeth. My back arched. I screamed, but I didn't let go. "Clear!" Trixie shrieked, pulling back. Ethan's body jolted off the ground. His back bowed. His eyes snapped open. They weren't blue. They weren't gold. They were black. Dilated pupils swallowing the iris. He sucked in a breath, a harsh, ragged gasp that sounded like tearing fabric. "Ethan!" I collapsed onto his chest, sobbing. He coughed, his body seizing as his lungs remembered how to work. He rolled onto his side, retching into the snow. Steam began to rise from his skin again. The heat was returning. "Penny," he rasped. His voice was broken, like gravel in a blender. "I'm here," I cried, smoothing the wet hair back from his forehead. "I'm here." He looked up at me. He looked exhausted, shattered, but alive. "You," he whispered, reaching a shaking hand to touch my face. "You jump-started me." "I used the bond," I sniffed, wiping my nose on my sleeve. "And Trixie, and Nana's retirement fund." Ethan looked past me at Trixie, who was stuffing cash into her pockets. He tried to growl, but it came out as a wet wheeze. "Let her go," I said softly. "We bought her off. She's gone." Ethan nodded slowly. His eyes drifted shut. "Tired," he murmured. "I know," I said, shivering as the adrenaline crash hit me. "But we can't stay here. Lydia is gone. She's going to spin this. We have to get back to the city." "No car," Nana pointed out, looking at the empty driveway. "The driver fled." Ethan opened one eye. He pointed a trembling finger toward the tree line where the wolves had emerged. SUV, he whispered. River pack, drives, Suburbans. I stood up, my legs shaking. "Nana," I said, grabbing the car keys from a pile of clothes left behind by one of the shifters. "Do you know how to drive a tank?" Nana grinned, spinning the keys on her finger. "Sweetheart, I drove a getaway car in 1974. Let's roll." Chapter 27, The Getaway. The Riverpack's SUV was huge, black, and smelled like wet dog. Nana Ruby was behind the wheel, driving like she was auditioning for Fast and Furious, geriatric drift. We were fishtailing down the mountain road at 80 miles an hour. I was in the back seat with Ethan. He was conscious, but barely. I had wrapped him in a thermal blanket we found in the trunk. His head was in my lap, his large body curled up on the leather seat. "You're burning up again," I whispered, brushing my hand over his forehead. "Not rut," he mumbled, his eyes closed. "Healing. Ley line, burn the wiring. Taking time to repair. Just rest. We'll be at the council hall in an hour." "Lydia is probably already there," I said grimly. "Telling them you went feral. Telling them you killed her wolves for no reason." "She has the contract," Ethan said. "If she shows it, if she claims I rejected you." "You didn't sign it," I reminded him. "You stabbed her with the pen. It was very romantic." He let out a weak chuckle that turned into a cough. He reached up, his hand finding mine. He interlaced our fingers. The hum was faint but steady, a low-voltage battery keeping the lights on. "Penny," he said softly. "Yeah?" "When we get there, if they demand a trial, you have to let me handle it. You stay back." "Excuse me?" I looked down at him. "Ethan, you can't even stand up without help. I am not staying back. I am the consultant. This is a PR nightmare, and I am the only one who knows how to fix it." "It's dangerous," he argued weakly. "The council, they are old, traditional. They don't like humans." "They liked the Viking guy," I countered, "and he liked me. Besides, I have something Lydia doesn't have." "What?" "Spreadsheets," I said, "and the truth, but mostly spreadsheets." Nana swerved to avoid a deer, sending the SUV skidding toward the guardrail. "Oops!" Nana yelled. "Correction, I have almost perfect vision." I tightened my grip on Ethan. "Just don't die in the back seat, okay? I refuse to explain that to the cops." Ethan squeezed my hand. He brought it to his lips, kissing my knuckles. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. "I have to buy you a new dress." We hit the city limits as the sun hung high in the gray winter sky. The skyline of Nocturne City was gray and steel, waking up to a Saturday morning. "Where to?" Nana asked, running a red light. "Obsidian Hall," Ethan said, forcing himself to sit up. "The council meets at dawn on the solstice weekend." "You look like hell," I told him, and he did. He was pale, unshaven, and wearing a blanket. "Doesn't matter," he grunted, the alpha mask sliding back into place. "Power isn't about how you look, it's about how you walk into the room." We pulled up to the massive Gothic building. There were news vans outside, Shifter News Network, Vampire Daily. Lydia had been busy. "She called the press," I realized. "She wants a public execution." Ethan opened the door. He stepped out, the blanket falling away to reveal the jeans I had found for him in the SUV. He was barefoot, shirtless, and covered in dried mud. He looked terrifying. He held out his hand to me. I took it. I was wearing his oversized shirt and a pair of combat boots I'd stolen from the trunk, 3 sizes too big. "Ready?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "Let's go." We walked up the steps. The paparazzi went silent. They didn't take photos, they just stared. Because Ethan wasn't projecting weakness, he was projecting pure, lethal calm. He pushed the heavy doors open. "Honey, I'm home," he whispered to me. Chapter 28. The PowerPoint of Doom. The council chamber was a circular room that looked like a courtroom designed by Dracula. Dark wood, high ceilings, and a gallery filled with the most powerful supernaturals in the city. In the center of the room stood Lydia. She had cleaned up. Her foot was bandaged, and she was wearing a white suit that screamed, "Innocent victim." She was crying. "And then he attacked," Lydia was sobbing to the 5 council elders sitting on the raised dais. "He went feral. He killed my pack. He tried to kill me. He is unfit to lead. He is a danger to the city." One of the elders, an ancient vampire named Silas, leaned forward. "And the human? The matchmaker?" "Dead," Lydia lied, wiping a tear. "He killed her first, snapped her neck like a twig. It was horrific." A gasp went through the gallery. "Objection!" A deep voice boomed from the back of the room. Every head turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, mud-caked and magnificent. I stood next to him. Nana Ruby stood behind us, holding her frying pan. She refused to leave it in the car. "She seems lively for a corpse," Ethan said, walking down the center aisle. The crowd parted instantly, shrinking away from the sheer pressure of his aura. Lydia's face went white. But the ley line—" "Missed," Ethan lied smoothly. He stopped in front of the dais. He didn't bow, he just stared at the elders. "Alpha Cross," Elder Silas said, his red eyes narrowing. "You stand accused of breaking the solstice peace, of murder, of madness." "I stand accused of defending my mate," Ethan corrected. He pulled me forward. "This is Penny Pringle, my mate, my queen." "She is human!" Lydia shrieked, dropping the act. "She is a liability! Look at her! She's weak!" "Actually," I said, stepping forward. My voice trembled, but I clicked my tongue against the roof of my mouth, a habit I used when nervous. "I'd like to present some data." I reached back, and Nana Ruby slapped a familiar object into my hand, my red clipboard. She must have swiped it from the limo before the siege. God bless that woman's kleptomania. I hugged it to my chest. It was my shield. "Who is this?" Silas asked, amused. "I am the consultant," I said, "and I have conducted a thorough audit of the River Pack's recent activities." I held up a piece of paper. It was actually a receipt for gas, but I waved it confidently. "Exhibit A, the attempted kidnapping of a protected human. Exhibit B, the use of unauthorized witchcraft to breach a Class A safe house. Exhibit C, the attempted theft of a federal ley line." I walked toward Lydia. She looked confused. She had expected a physical fight, not a legal one. "You claim Alpha Cross is unstable," I said, "but my data shows that his heart rate only spikes when you are in the room, which suggests an allergic reaction to shit." The gallery tittered. "He killed my wolves!" Lydia yelled. "He defended his home!" Ethan growled, stepping up behind me. "You brought an army to my doorstep, Lydia. You put a leash on me." He pointed to his neck. There was a faint bruise where the silver collar had been. The elders saw it. The mood in the room shifted instantly. To leash an alpha was a capital crime in shifter law. It was slavery. "Is this true?" Silas asked Lydia. He was in rut. I had to restrain him." "You tried to force him to sign territory over," I added. "I was there. I saw the contract." "Liar!" Lydia lunged at me. It was a stupid move. She was desperate, her claws extended. Ethan didn't move. He didn't have to. I sidestepped. I had spent 4 days with a werewolf. I knew how they moved. I stuck my foot out, my heavy combat boot. Lydia tripped. She face-planted onto the stone floor. I placed my boot on her back. "And Exhibit D," I said to the council. "She has terrible balance." Silas laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. "The council finds in favor of Alpha Cross," he declared. "The River Pack is hereby dissolved. Its territory is forfeit to the Obsidian Pack." He looked at me. "And the human, she stays. I like her style." Chapter 29. The Real Deal. The hallway outside the council chamber was quiet. The press had been cleared out. The chaos was over. Ethan leaned against the stone wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor. The adrenaline was finally fading, leaving him exhausted. "You okay?" I asked, sitting next to him. "You stepped on her," Ethan chuckled weakly. "You stepped on an alpha." "She tripped," I shrugged. "Workplace hazard." Nana Ruby wandered over, holding a tray of pastries she had stolen from the buffet. "Anyone want a Danish? They have cheese." Ethan took a pastry. He looked at Nana. "Thank you, Ruby, for the drive and the frying pan." "Any time, Wolfie, but you still owe me for the apartment security deposit." Nana winked and walked away to flirt with a gargoyle statue. Ethan turned to me. He took my hand, running his thumb over my knuckles. "So," he said, "that went well." "We avoided execution. I count that as a win." "Penny," he said, his voice turning serious. "The council accepted you. The Europeans accepted you. The pack will accept you." "Because you scared them into it." "No, because you defended them. You defended me." He reached over and gently took the red clipboard from my hands. He unclipped a piece of paper from the back. It was the check. The original commission check for finding him a wife. $50,000. "You completed the contract," he said. "You found the queen." I looked at the check. Then I looked at him. "You're the queen, Penny," he said softly. "You're the only one who fits the job description. Must be brave, must be smart, must be able to tolerate a grumpy alpha who sheds on the furniture." "I thought the job description was must be a werewolf," I teased, tears pricking my eyes. "I amended it," he smiled. It was a real smile, soft, human. "Must be Penny." He ripped the check in half. "Hey!" I protested. "That was my tuition money." "I'm not paying you a fee," he said. "I'm offering a partnership. A merger, if you will." He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. The hum of the bond was warm, golden, and permanent. "Marry me, Penny. Be my mate. Be my problem. Let me buy you buildings and weird meat coolers for the rest of our lives." I laughed, a wet, happy sound. "You're impossible," I said. "I'm yours." "Fine," I whispered, "but we are renegotiating the raw meat gift policy." "Deal." He kissed me. And right there, on the floor of the ancient council hall, surrounded by gargoyles and stolen pastries, I realized that for the first time in my life, the matchmaker didn't need a spreadsheet to know the compatibility score. It was 100%. "Come on," he groaned, standing up and pulling me with him. "Let's go home. I need to sleep for a week." "And then?" "And then," he growled playfully, "I'm going to chase you around the apartment." Chapter 30. Epilogue. 6 months later. The Office of Perfect Match had been upgraded. It was no longer a closet in the Garlic District. It was a sleek, glass-walled suite on the top floor of the Apex Tower, formerly the Cross Building, we rebranded. I sat at my desk, adjusting my glasses. My hair was still in a messy bun, but the pencil holding it up was now made of solid gold, a gag gift from Ethan. "Next!" I called out. The door opened. A young werebear walked in. He looked terrified. "Hi," he stammered. "I'm looking for a mate. I like honey and long naps." "Sit down, Arthur," I said, pulling up his file on my holographic screen. "I have a dryad in accounting who loves hibernation. I think you two will hit it off." The door behind me opened. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. The air in the room shifted. The temperature dropped a pleasant 10 degrees, and the scent of cedar and rain filled the space. Arthur the bear turned pale. "Alpha Cross!" Ethan walked in. He was wearing a suit that fit perfectly, his hair trimmed, looking every inch the king. He was holding a takeout bag from my favorite Thai place. He walked right past the trembling bear and kissed the top of my head. "Lunch," he announced. "I'm working, Ethan," I said, clicking my pen. "Arthur needs love." "Arthur can wait," Ethan rumbled. He looked at the bear. "Get out, Arthur. Come back in an hour." Arthur scrambled out of the chair and fled the room faster than a bear should physically be able to move. "You scared the client," I scolded, spinning my chair around. "He was sitting in the wrong chair," Ethan said, dropping into the seat Arthur had just vacated. He propped his feet up on my desk, crossing his ankles. He looked at me with that same intense, hungry look he'd had the first day we met, the look that said I was the only thing in the world that mattered. "So," he said, opening the Thai food, "I have a request. A new client." "Oh?" I raised an eyebrow. "Who?" "Me." "You have a wife, Ethan. She's very organized. You can't upgrade." "I don't want an upgrade," he grinned, his canines flashing. "I want a date. Tonight, 8 p.m., the Gilded Cage." "Is it a blind date?" "No," he said, standing up and leaning over the desk to capture my lips in a searing kiss. "It's a sure thing." He pulled back, his blue eyes dancing with amusement. "Just make sure you're on time, Mrs. Cross. I hear the husband gets growly when he's hungry." I laughed, picking up my pen. "I'll put it on the spreadsheet," I promised. He walked to the door, paused, and looked back. "And Penny?" "Yeah?" He gestured to the chair behind my desk, the Alpha's chair. "You look good in my chair." He winked and walked out. I smiled and tapped my gold pencil and went back to work. The end.